Sea is the power, and that is what also invites the respect also to the individual or to the country. Look at the differential location between the India and China. You know, the budget, you know, going up to 150 billion, ours is close to 39 billion. Look at the force level, Army, Navy and Air Force. The Air Force, our chief has only said it, you know, the deficit areas that we have. Whereas they are going for all those modern fifth generation.
So you think it's not good enough? Our, you know, we have, as far as parity is concerned, we are far
far below than them. Two.
For example, now one of the areas where China is concentrating is the Indian Ocean region.
Yes.
So how is our naval capability?
We are also have admitted this fact that these are all warships are older warships. We got for replenishment of the warships, you know. I mean, we have not even able to secure that level which in fact we had conceived as a part of 1963, the first Indian defense plan.
But I thought in certain areas we are superior to China. For example, they don't have aircraft carriers. We have at least two of them.
No, but there's only one that we have. But then are we going to use that aircraft carrier when didn't we use it against Pakistan? No, we have to objectively start thinking on these lines when they are already fighting with us. It's not the Chinese are not fighting with us. They are already fighting with us in a very discreet manner that we have not been able to somehow, you know, see that in a reality.
The Indian Ocean is definitely their influence in the Indian Ocean is definitely a cause of concern, particularly with Coco Islands, Chittagong, and now in Sri Lanka they are developing Gwadar, and therefore I think of the three services, lot of stress and attention will have to be paid towards the Navy.
But initially you mentioned that, you know, by way of prioritizing we need to worry particularly about Arunachal. So how we place there, particularly with what is happening in Nepal?
That is true, but as DP mentioned that there is a move to raise two mountain divisions. You know, mountains eat up troops, and we definitely want to raise our force levels there. But our problem is our execution takes 5 to 7 to 10 years. With the result, by the time you execute this,
more threats develop.
The other threats are
so we need to improve our procurement
absolutely. We must have a time frame within which we must raise these divisions, a time frame within which we must get this equipment profile improved, and
but what do we need to do, General Kochhar, as far as Nepal is concerned?
The Naxalite insurgency hitherto was supporting the Maoists in Nepal before we talked about the famous Red Corridor. Now it is the time for payback. The moment they have an influence in Nepal, they are going to provide training, weapons, moral, economic support to the Naxalites. And with the Seven Sisters being you know, totally cut away with the cut off from the Siliguri corridor, which is not more than 10 to 15 kilometers. And in our previous discussion we did not mention to you that between Bhutan and Sikkim there is a place called the Chubi Valley, in which the Chinese influence is increasing by the day. There have been number of talks between.
And are we doing nothing about it?
In the sense that yes, talks are going on, but the communications have been improved. The Chinese are moving in greater numbers over there, and the latest is that they might even build a railway line up to that place. Now, if that happens, then to totally cut off the Siliguri corridor is not a remote possibility.
That's a very.
It can be done both physically.
I would refer to, you know, while dealing with the Chinese, we actually have to read their psychology. Now, according to the Chinese, there are no friendly states, as the Sun Tzu says. It's an old 4th century. It says either the neighboring states are the vassal states or the enemy states. Reading into these lines, and then the Chinese also having said that China, you know, the Middle Kingdom concept, or China mainland is the palm, and the rest of the countries in the peripheral design the fingers. So we got to put into the mind of the neighboring countries all that the China is bidding with them is not in their interest, but then later on is definitely are going to be pumped into or sucked into again Chinese mainland. Now, those are the things that we have to objectively and subjectively work over in a discrete manner, as China is doing with Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Myanmar.
So we need to have a proper strategy as far as
that is what is required as far as.
Other cause of concern is also, you take the Bangladesh army, the tanks are Chinese.
Yes.
You take the navy, the frigates are from China.
Yes.
You take the air force, the jet fighters are from China.
So they're slowly
training
their
and relate this to what I said earlier, the Chumbi Valley and the northern tip of Bangladesh, what is now Bangladesh, is not more than 25 to 30.
Well, that almost looks quite alarming.
Yes.
Here we'll take another short break. When we return, we discuss what India needs to do to safeguard its security and defense interests against China. Welcome back. We are discussing the rising threat from China to India's security interests with our defense experts. General D.P. Singh, we also hear that some Chinese troops are there in the Gilgit agency in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir area, the northern areas that they call.
About 11,000 people have been stationed in Gilgit, though they say this to help the Pakistanis to overcome the law and order problem in that area. But certainly we need to take note of this, not only this, their recent assertiveness on India. For instance, the Prime Minister going to Arunachal, Dalai Lama going to Arunachal, not issuing the visa to the General Officer commanding Northern Army.
Yes.
Right? Then their incursions last year into Ladakh and some other places. All this has to be taken totality and then see that whether we need to take certain additional countermeasures or not. I think definitely it's a cause for worry.
Right. Professor Datta, now the US is also giving certain military and financial assistance to Pakistan, I think to the extent about $2 billion. This is of course to fight the terrorists on the Afghan border. But India obviously fears that some of this could be diverted this side. Do you think our fears are justified?
They are quite justified, because that the history goes, they had always been using those right from 65 onwards on India. You know, technologically Pakistan had always been superior to our armaments. Pakistan is using the same tactics which China also is using against India. So the Chinese also keeping themselves for this local war under new conditions.
That is to bleed India slowly. Is that what you mean?
No, to bleed India slowly, but to bleed India, you know, aggressively.
Okay.
That is what is the main plank of both these countries.
The threat is moving from one area to another area.
You know, they have circumvented the Malaccas by going through this Gwadar and then again developing Karakoram and then taking all their requirements to the mainland.
Right.
And when I was saying, you know, that the Pakistan is gradually also, you know, no, China is gradually also trying to overtake these peripheral countries. Imagine, you know, when you're referring to Gwadar, they're also building those silos in this area, you know, 22 tunnels, and they are not allowing even Pakistan also to come and near those tunnels. So they have their interest in these countries, but they have their interest only of theirs only.
Before we went into the break, we were talking about Arunachal and the Chumbi Valley and the steps that that need to be taken in that area. In 1962, of course, we had a humiliating defeat as far as China is concerned. But after that, things have changed drastically. You know, we have upgraded some of our airfields, our helipads. We have stationed our fighter jets in some of those crucial areas. So, do you think we are much better placed than ever before today?
You know, in 1962, I travelled by a train right up to Tezpur. We had to hack the trees so that the train could move, and our driver ran away from there. We have come a long way from that. Definitely, we have made inroads both in rail, road and air communications.
Also, I think doctrinally also we have moved forward.
Yeah.
In 62, we didn't even use the Air Force.
But the only drawback is, as I mentioned earlier, projects are in the pipeline, but their execution is rather slow.
Professor Datta, General D.P. Singh mentioned about the two mountain divisions having been raised. But do you think we still need to step up the troop levels in the area, because the Chinese troop levels are at least 50% more than ours in that area?
You know that in order to bridge that differential positions, obviously we have to build up our force strength, and more is of infrastructure, you know, these activities. We thought let's take them by way of engagement, by way of trade areas, by way of our look east policy, you know, wherein again we can have our influence in these countries. But then when we look at on the ground, you know, the things definitely are not conducive to the kind of requirement that we should have it by now. Certainly, as you've been also saying about 62, yes, we have moved much from 62, but the Chinese also have gone much ahead of, you know, in their tactics.
Okay, General Kochhar, I want to check with you. Now, is there some way, obviously the border dispute in the Arunachal area remains a sore point. Is there some way in which that issue can be resolved? And they don't recognize the McMahon line, and we claim that certain areas with China are ours.
One can't foresee it, but I do not think that it is going to be that easy. We are still bewildered with what happened in J&K, and it is not something which can be resolved slowly, but they are very patient people, mind you.
General Kochhar, I would rather say, you know, first thing is that we have to admit such kind of dichotomies. More than half of Arunachal, they claim it as a South Tibet. We are going for this 14th talk with the Chinese now, you know.
Yes, but then how do we resolve this issue?
They are not.
How do you think we can resolve our problems with China?
Why should they resolve? First thing is, I would ask you, why should they resolve? When you yourself also not sure. You know, who the hell is asking you that you should start saying it that these are
No, Professor Datta, the point here is that we have an issue, we have a problem on our hands. So how do we resolve it?
This is one of the most, the largest undemarcated area, McMahon line, undemarcated.
No, as of now, the whole effort appears to be built up on both sides. Now, why can't we start moving towards a resolution of the problem?
There has to be certain give and take, and diplomatic channels are one of the means to do it. We shouldn't foreclose our eyes to it, and therefore,
are we moving in that direction?
I don't think.
It doesn't appear to be at the moment.
How do we? If we have to resolve the issue, how do we move forward?
My view is, during discussions between China and India on the border issue, certain amount of understanding was being seen. But to have that understanding, most important is that we should be militarily so strong that China doesn't bully us. Then they will probably negotiate on more equal terms. And in that case, all those principles of negotiating along the border, the theory of watershed, the theory of some monastery having alliance with someone else, that can come into play.
Increase our military build-up so that you force them to come to the negotiating table in our terms.
If India is economically strong, they understand that this country is strong and they are not to be bullied.
General Kochhar, last word from you. Do you think we need to increase our build-up considerably? I mean, go in for ICBMs, maybe launch our Agni 5 so that, the enemy is forced to come to the negotiating table?
One could, keep on debating, but at what cost? That is the point. Can we afford all that? Therefore, I think there has to be a very happy mix and balance of both economic growth and military hardware. And the point which I want to emphasize again and again is that with China, we have to have patience. It is a country which plans 20, 30, 40 years ahead, and we have to learn something from them. And therefore, as both have mentioned, slowly and steadily we must make ourselves strong enough that there is just no walk-in like that, which we had in
and then only we should negotiate with them.
Thank you gentlemen for joining us in this discussion. China has remained an irritant on India's northern borders. In fact, in 1962, India suffered a humiliating defeat at its hands. Much has changed since that time, and India's defense preparedness is vastly improved. But with China widening its net and scope around the Asian subcontinent, India needs to take a hard look at its state of preparedness. Besides, there is need to take another look at our war doctrines and also our relations with other countries. That is all in this episode. Write your feedback on this episode at defenseline@dayandnightnews.com. Next week, we meet again with a new issue. Till then, good luck and goodbye. And now we meet at the bar.